the Boston Bruins seem to be against the word of the players because it seemed to be every one of them that was asked wasn't agreeing with it. Have signed Mitchell Miller to an ELC. Not just any ELC, one with I think max bonuses and everything. And for those of you who are wondering, why does Mitchell Miller sound familiar? This was the dude who the Coyotes drafted all those years ago. I think he was a fourth round pick.
Yeah.
Was that the first COVID draft?
Yeah, that was the first COVID draft, and that was, I think, the Coyotes technically their first pick in that draft.
Yes, because and that was the dog is going nuts. He doesn't like the idea of them signing Mitchell Miller either. Yeah, because it was people were arguing they did it at the time because he was supposed to be like a second round pick. He fell for reasons we're going to get into. And then that was it. Yeah, that's a good point, Dan, because they had just lost all their picks because they're illegally testing prospects. Mitchell Miller,
was that year?
I think it was, or was that they lost their first for like Taylor Hall and
they traded for Taylor Hall. That was.
Wait, there's a Shakur Mamadulin pick.
Really? Okay. Anyway, that's not important. Anyway, it's weird to think the Coyotes have lost a lot of picks the past couple of years. Very strange. Anyway, Mitchell Miller for years apparently bullied. I think his name is Isaiah Thomas Carruthers was his name. Young man. Again, I think he's disabled. A child of color. And that's important for some of the remarks that Mitchell Miller said to him, bullying him apparently physically as well. And this sort of worst thing that came out of all this when it was first coming out was, this made me make you a little squeamish, but it is important here. Apparently rubbing a lollipop on a urinal, inside of a urinal, sorry, and tricking the other kid to lick it. And I believe afterwards the kid had to test for HIVs and everything. Now, was Mitchell Miller 14 when this happened? Yes, I'm sure you've all seen this, but I just thought before we get into it, we just do a quick little recap there. Obviously, it also came out that when he was drafted, Mitchell Miller wrote a letter to all the teams, but at that time had not apologized to Isaiah. Also, apparently up until a week ago, there still wasn't an apology, and Isaiah's foster mother had actually said about a week ago Isaiah had been reached out to by Mitchell via Instagram for an apology where he was told it had nothing to do with hockey. A week later, we know that to not be true. So the Bruins do this. They bring this kid in. I shouldn't say kid now. No, he's grown up now. He must be 20, 21. He's an adult. Listen, Patrice Bergeron seemed disturbed by it. Said it went against sort of the culture of the room. Nick Foligno said it really seemed like no one in the group was really for it. Executives have come out sort of discreetly and saying, this isn't going to work in Boston. This isn't the market you can get away with it. Hell, the Coyotes didn't get away with it, and that's the smallest market in the league.
Did executives actually say that?
There was a tweet going around about an unnamed executive saying, in a small market with less reporters, this could work, but not in Boston, even though Arizona, as we know, is no one cares about the market, to be honest.
Which is just from I can't take respectfully. I cannot take that quote seriously, considering if you look at the contract itself, it was so clear that there was other teams interested in it, that to have a quote like that from an executive means absolutely nothing. Like, it's dumb. It's a dumb quote from an executive, more so to put it out there, because it was extremely clear that, like, that quote to me sounds like, well, it's a problem if Boston does it, but if another team does it, it's not a big deal. It's just clearly there were other teams in on it. I feel like that quote is meaningless.
Yes. Yeah. Michael Russo also tweeted out how, for me, this is what kind of illustrated how much of a bad job the PR team did. They announced this signing as the Bruins going into Toronto. And then what he tweeted out was the emoticon for meat for the media.
See, that's not great. I will say, at least they did it. They didn't do it at the end of a Friday. I feel like in that point, bar? Hockey Canada wise, it is. And when the Habs signed Logan Mailloux, it was.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Or when they put out their statement, remember they about like pleasing sponsors and that, they buried it in free agency. And then when the OHL said Mayu was reinstated, was in the midst of the juniors getting canceled too. So it is a low standard, but at least they had to know that going into a hockey night game against the Leafs, massive rival, hockey night in Canada, they knew it was going to be a big problem. Now, it doesn't help where Don Sweeney's press conference was bad enough. But apparently, Hockey Night in Canada said that he declined to come on to the show and talk about it. I don't really, which was a bit sort of okay. Then there goes any sort of good grace I think you had. Well, not that you had any to begin with here. Apparently, they didn't consult Jim Montgomery, head coach, about the decision. They did not consult the league, and Gary Bettman, who is it's very rare to hear Gary sort of be definitive about anything. I'm going to read something a little here. This is obviously, he had a press conference about the Global Series and all that. Shout out to the Blue Jackets getting killed in both games. They have not been good. This is a statement from the commissioner, which is I don't know the last time we've had a statement like this from the commissioner. From what I understand and heard through the media, what he did as a 14-year-old is reprehensible, unacceptable. Before the Bruins made the decision to sign him, we were not consulted. I happened to talk to Cam Neely since the time he was signed. He's not coming into the NHL. He's not eligible at this point to come into the NHL. I can't tell you that he'll ever be eligible to come into the NHL. If at some point they think they want him to play in the NHL, that being the Bruins, obviously, and I'm not sure they're anywhere close to that point, we're going to have to clear him and his eligibility. It will be based on all the information that we get firsthand at the time. So the answer is they are free to sign him and play somewhere else. That's another organization, but nobody should think at this point that he is or may ever be NHL eligible, and the Bruins understand that. The AHL apparently, its president is going to have a meeting with Mitchell Miller later this week, I believe, or it's Sunday. So whenever you start the week in your own opinion, the president's going to have a sort of sit down with him and determine his future. So he may not be able to play in the AHL even, and I believe he's supposed to report to AHL Providence. And by the way, before anyone sort of listening is wondering, why would they sign this player anyway? USHL Defenseman of the Year last year. I think it was like 40 or 50 goals in that time. So he's got skill, is unfortunately the pure thing of it. That's simply why. And why did the Coyotes draft him? They saw a guy who was eligible and was projected to be in the second round, followed them in the fourth. That's simply what this is.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? Didn't Don Sweeney say, like, I don't even know if this is the right decision?
Did he say that?
Yes, yeah, pretty much. Maybe not
God.
word for word like that, but almost like that. Like this is this is the most confusing part of all this to me, is they sign him and I'm not saying they should have doubled down, but they didn't double down, and now they just look like they look a little bit cowardly with how everything's gone. They signed him. Don Sweeney has his press conference, has a list of quotes that, first off, make it seem like he's not the one who wanted to do this. The way a lot of those quotes came off to me, talking about how, like you said, I don't know if this is the right decision. I don't know if I'd ever forgive him if it was my child. Like, it made everything leading up to this, up to today, seems like he also did not want to do this. Plus, not going on Hockey Night in Canada, like, you knew what this was going to create, and then it's dumped on the players. Like, Patrice Bergeron has a sit-down interview with Elliot Friedman yesterday.
That was so uncomfortable, but I'd like to say that was probably one of the most uncomfortable interviews I've ever watched.
And then, if you're Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, that it's going to be asked at every press conference that happens prior to the game. And there was how many quotes were there from yesterday? I saw Patrice Bergeron. I saw Nick Foligno. Like, you dumped it on the players. Mm-hmm. You knew it was. You just had your press conference, and then you just threw it. Like, to me, it felt like you threw them under the bus a little bit.
Something else I just want to quickly mention before I think Danny, you're about to say something there, so sorry. Sweeney on signing Mitchell Miller. I'm not going to downplay that this has been a personal struggle as well as a professional struggle. They did not reach out to the victim's family during the vetting process. Is something else pretty bad here. And one more thing I add before I throw it to you here, Daniel. And this is something Arpin Basu at the Athletic pointed out. And I'm going to read Mitchell Miller's statement in a second here. There's been no mention of the racism here in some of the other ways he treated Isaiah. Everyone talks about the lollipop incident. There was more than that. And then I'll read it in a second here, but go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I actually was going to mention the Arpin Basu
Okay.
quote as well, where there's just so many factors that have been here that I think when we see the tweets that are happening with this, it sometimes it could be a bit singular for the way that people respond. They're like, "Oh, I remember when I was 14 years old," but like, it's pretty crazy where it's like, I don't remember doing any of that. I don't remember holding these types of things in my head. I don't see how we could just look at it like, oh, like I hate that stupid quote when people say like boys will be boys
So
because we've
apparently
seen
his mom
yeah,
said that, which is
yeah,
like, what?
it was like a repeated pattern of so many things going on, so many forms of harassment that I don't understand. Well, frankly, like I'm not accusing anyone. Well, I have to in this way. It's his parent, but the way his mom kind of approaches as well is just like, is this kind of like a shared mentality that they're just having with it? Where like, come on, like let's just move on. Like, why are we still talking about this? But it still has to be talked about.
By the way, on top of the racism thing, Frank Cervelli pointed out, and there were some DMs that were coming out, like a mini sort of interview with Joni Mayer Carruthers, who was Isaiah's foster mother, I believe is the direct relationship. And part of that, the team basically referred to everything with Miller as a single incident, yet the victim's mother says this was, quote, years of trauma on top of that. Now, I'm just going to read Miller's statement here because I think we've all seen it, and I have a lot of problems with this. First off, the first thing I think you have to start with is an apology, and instead it is, quote, when I was in 8th grade, I made an extremely poor decision and acted very immaturely, said Miller. I bullied one of my classmates.
Immature would be an understatement, by the way.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. I deeply regret the incident and have apologized to the individual. Since the incident, I have come to better understand the far-reaching consequences of my actions that I failed to recognize and understand nearly 7 years ago. I strive to be a better person and positively contribute to society as a member of the Bruins organization. I will continue to participate in community programs to both educate myself and share my mistake with others to show what mistakes. Let me get that clear. Sorry. He did say mistakes. I didn't see the S. Sorry. With others to show what negative impact those actions can have on others. I want to be clear. What I did when I was 14 years old was wrong and unacceptable. There is no place in this world for being disrespectful to others. Disrespectful. Let me just say that again. There is no place in this world for being disrespectful to others, and I pledge to use this opportunity to speak out against mistreating others. First off, the passage of time was referenced 3 times there. Disrespectful.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. But I'm going to take my glasses off when I say this quickly because I just have to rub my eyes and be like, dude, okay, guys, I can remember. Okay, so 14, he said, God, grade 8. I thought you would have been in high school by that. Okay, anyway, he may have an early birthday. I'm thinking around grade 8 or 9 perspective here. Let's think back to that, guys. Rubbing, I think there's stuff like he apparently like had one time bashed Isaiah's head into a wall.
Yeah, the brick wall.
Like that's just that's a different level of just being a bull. That's just being a monster. Rubbing and being racist too is just sort of another sort of whatever. But the lollipop thing, and I think it's not the only incident, but it's the one that stands out because it is the most monstrous thing of it all. That isn't boys being boys. That isn't a mistake. That's evil, is what that is. That is, I can't fathom that. Like, and what idea is that, boy, lads? Oh, you know what we should do? No, that's what always gets to me. That statement wasn't an apology. That was an emphasis on this is what I did in the past, whatever, whatever. And I'll emphasize what I said with Logan Mayu because there's been a lot of comparisons to that. And I think we're missing the point if we're trying to compare which is worse here. Okay. Think of it like this, right? If you think someone deserves a second chance, which, okay, fine. Does everyone deserve a second chance? If you think so, whatever. Okay. This is what I always go back to. Is that second chance, should it be with the Boston Bruins, with if let's like obviously he won't play in the NHL this year probably, but an ELC that is going to be worth, if it's full bonus and stuff, probably over $4 million. Is that a real second chance?
But
no, it's not. That is, it's like privilege in its greatest. It's like that is so messed up.
But I don't think it had, for me, I don't think it has to do with it being the Boston Bruins. He could be going to the Arizona Coyotes.
So what I just mean is like it's an NHL team. Like
yeah.
Here,
so okay, I mean? No, like it's weird. It obviously it caught me off guard, regardless of what team it was. But it caught me off guard a lot more when it was Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how much we talk about that locker room and the things that come out of that locker room. And you go back to some of the things we've talked about in the past. And so it caught me very much off guard when it was Boston who made this decision. And it was worse by how they responded to it and everything that they've done. Yeah, you're right. Like he does, to go back, I guess, to your point, like about second chances. It's like, listen, man, I'm all for second chances. If you deserve it. And like, I'm not setting the bar high in half these cases, to be honest. And I don't think what we're asking to be done is setting the bar high by any means, but it's not like he's hit the bar at all. And I think like that's the frustrating part, is like he hasn't even touched the bar, let alone passed it. And we're having this discussion.
Like, what have you done that isn't court issued, agent told you to do, previous teams? What have you done on your own accord?
No, but like, go read the statement. Like, screw, like, take all that stuff out.
Yeah, like
go read let's look at the statement you just read. What was the emphasis 3 times in that statement? The emphasis on I was 14. I get it. You're 20 years old now. I get it. You're not, but it's what you did at 14. People, I am the first person to tell you people make mistakes. I'd be the first person to tell you that is that's beyond a mistake. I don't know what the word for that would be. That is beyond a mistake. Like, man, it's just, that's the toughest part. It's like, what are we doing here?
Chris Johnson tweeted this out when everything was breaking down. Mitchell Miller's entry-level contract with the Bruins contains, just to expand about the contract here, contains the maximum allowable signing bonus each year, $95,000, more than a lot of people make in 1 year. Plus performance bonuses, $105K, $80K, $80K. It contains the maximum AHL salary allowable, so he will also have that if the AHL does decide to let him play. I'm just going through everything to make sure we touched on every note of it. I want to give a shout out to Patrice Bergeron also mentioning the word inclusion when he was talking about the Mitchell Miller stuff and how that was a big part of that locker room too. I think he was asked in a media scrum, how does this, do you think it's going to change the culture? Is it going to undermine it? And he very sternly was like, no, it's not going to change our room. And, you know what? It also makes you think, how long is Bergeron even going to be around now? Because we know he just took that 1 year. There was word of retirement. You talk about this great locker room. Brad Marchand, despite how good he has looked after this hip injury, or surgery, just had hip surgery and is on the other side of 30.
Yeah.
This core isn't going to be around forever. And you know what? Remember Evander Kane going to San Jose? The Sharks locker room is great. And it's sort of fallen apart since Evander Kane. There was a whole buyout stuff. It was just a mess. And it's not like Evander Kane's reputation has gotten any better. Anything else we want to talk about with Mitchell Miller here, guys?
Yeah, I want to talk about real quick how fast the NHLPA jumped on this.
Yo, I completely forgot about that. Yes. So what exactly did they say, Alex?
So obviously Gary Bettman, we talked about earlier, Gary Bettman said that that he was suspended, even though like when they said that, I'm like, I didn't know that the NHL had suspended his eligibility, but that's besides the point. And Greg Wyshynski tweeted last night, NHLPA tells ESPN that the NHL has not informed them about any suspension to Mitchell Miller or anything that would impact his eligibility. NHLPA said there needs to be more info provided by NHL regarding Commissioner Gary Bettman's statements on Saturday.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. What? Shut up. Like, guys, shut up. Like, you think of all the times in the past the PA have been late for something, and this is going to be your shut up.
This is the standard that they're going to establish.
By the way, who's that?
Don't know.
Yeah, shut up. Read the room. God, they suck. God, the PA suck. Anything else, Alex? Anything else, Daniel?
I don't know. We've talked about it already. I think for me, it's a bit of a weird thing to process that, like the Boston Bruins, a team that we've mentioned, the culture they have, the room they have, the way things have been just so close to the vest for them, and how they've been able to maintain this streak of success. This, if I say in a way, a model organization in many ways, and to kind of have the slip up, it's just like we mentioned reading the room, but it's also kind of, looking at, like what you have and not want to disrupt that in any way. And I think now when you've mentioned, I like that you guys said that it is on the players now to speak out, to be the ones to say, like, this is what's going on, is what we feel. It's just two things. It's just, willful blindness on Don Sweeney's part. And the second thing is just, it's an unneeded distraction for what? For a guy that, let's try to look beyond it because of the skill of things, of how he's been able to perform, even though, he lost his NCAA scholarship and he's just ripping it up in the USHL.
Quickly, I've just actually seen something from an hour ago, a statement from Mitchell Miller's agent. So we can just quickly give this a read. I haven't read it yet, so this will be sort of very quick of us. The decision to take on Mitchell Miller as a client was not one the O2K Sport Management made lightly. As one of the very few Black NHL agents in the league, a member of the NHL's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and as a Black man who has spent his entire life in hockey, I understand the gravity of the situation and respect the fierce emotions and reactions to the initial reporting and commentary around Mr. Miller's past behavior. O2K Sports Management would not have agreed to represent Mitchell without months of research, deliberation, introspection within our organization, and conversations with outside advisors. Moreover, when deliberating whether to represent Miller, we learned throughout the last 6 years he's been volunteering with organizations such as Spread the Word Campaign, Little Miracles, Adaptive Sports of Ohio, Gliding Stars. Furthermore, this summer, okay, Mitchell and I met with the committee Mitchell and I met with and committed to working with the following: Bill Proudman, white men as full diversity partners, the Carnegie Initiative, Hockey Equality. Also, before signing his contract, Mitchell met with and committed to working with local community projects such as Bullying Prevention Program, After School Program, Youth Guidance Program. We believe in restorative justice. Mitchell and I are on that path together, and I welcome you all to join us. O2K Sports Management believes in accountability, and so does our client. After weighing all these factors, we came to the conclusion to embrace the forward-thinking approach of Professor Loretta Ross and chose to counsel, not cancel, as the path to racial healing and understanding. Again, no mention of Isaiah in that. Just want to say off the top of my head. And again, what distinct there is something that he made the sole decision, guys, not something the agent pushed him to. Again, sorry, that is like, we have not seen that until just now. That's just something like right off the head here.
That's great. But again, if you go back to Mitchell Miller's statement from yesterday, that statement doesn't reflect the statement you just read. Fair? Like, is that fair? Is that unreasonable to say that that statement you just read from his agent isn't reflected on the statement that Mitchell Miller released, or whoever wrote that statement for him yesterday?
Fair.
That's fair.
That's great. No, like, I commend him for doing those things if that's what he's done. But that statement doesn't read like that. That statement reads to me as someone who I don't want to say arrogant, but who's so focused on the one thing of him being 14 and him being young and it happening in the past that why are we still, I get it. We're aware the situation and the facts hasn't changed since 2020. No one's forgotten about this. That's why the outrage is still here. Why there's outrage when he signed with the Bruins.
Also, that the little miracle stuff. I want people to remember that. Just remember it for a little later. By the way, I'm not going to say anything now because I don't want to go off of people who are just putting something on Twitter. But remember that for later, please. Eventually, I feel like that's going to be something important down the line.